it going? It's 7 o'clock. Is that time again every week? We see a lot of new faces tonight. So welcome. It's always good to see people engaged in the civic process. Democracy in action. All right, let's go ahead and start with our roll call.
Mayor Bagley.
Here.
Council members Christensen. Here. Finley. Here. Martin. Here. Peck. Rodriguez. Here. Waters. Here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, let's go ahead and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so quick reminder, we've got a brief first call public invited to be heard, but everyone on the list will have 3 minutes. It's a regular session meeting, so you can either get your name on the list now, Mr. Benston, or you'll have to wait till the end of the meeting. So while we do a few other things real quick, I'm going to pass this down to our city clerk and make sure you get your name on this, or you'll get to speak, but just not till the very end of the meeting. Strider, do you want your name on this or no? Okay, it's on. I'll just put it on right here. All right. Forgive me for taking some liberties, but I just kind of figured. All right. A liberty? Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and do we have an approval for the minutes of July 22nd, 2019 regular session? Councilmember Peck? We've got to, do you want to second it? Say second. All right, we have it. The minutes have been moved by Dr. Waters and seconded by Councilmember Peck. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, I have one thing that came up tonight. We did board and commissions interviews. Could you please go ahead? And I don't know. We don't know if the board does it or if council does it, but we would like to change the Master Board of Appeals to nix the term limits, because a lot of people it's tough to get people to serve on that board. A lot of people aren't qualified, and so we never have enough people. And when we always ask them, so why do you think the board doesn't have enough members? It's always, well, because we love serving those who do, but we always have to wait 2 years and they sit out. So if you could prepare that and bring it back just relatively soon, that'd be good. Or extend it forever, or just come back with some options if you could. All right. Anyone else have any voting ended? Could you go ahead, Don, and please clear my screen? All right. Lifetime, like this, yeah, lifetime appointments, please. That was a joke. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to city manager's report. Do you have a report? All right. Okay. So we are going to skip the special reports and presentations. We were going to redo the All Cultures One Voice Week. Apparently, Eric Finnestead there was an error in the proclamation, and we were going to reread it, except that Eric's wife is having a birthday tonight. So happy birthday to her, and he's where he needs to be. So we'll correct that on a later date. Let's move on to first call public invited to be heard. Can you pass that list back down, Don? I thought, oh, nope. It's in there somewhere. Oh, here it is. You're right. Okay, if you come up, state your name and your address. You'll have 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, no matter how much I love what you're saying, I'm going to have to cut you off. So let's start with Mr. James Ross. Let's go ahead and make sure the mic's on so that, all right, perfect.
Okay. Before I start, I don't know if you're doing this deliberately to try and confuse me, but I know who Mr. Waters is. And I voted for Mr. Rodriguez. And they're not sitting in the right place.
Oh, yeah, they've got your,
make a difference?
They've got your things. And if you could, yes, you are. If you could get that microphone right up, the paper's going to really yell at us if you don't get heard.
I don't know. They might yell at
me.
Yeah,
it has to be right up on your lips.
Yeah. How do I know when to start, Mayor?
And go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Ross. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association at Hover Woods. My board is here in total. 80% of the residents are here in this room tonight. And I would like to ask both the board and the residents to just raise their hands so that the council knows who you are. Okay. Now, I'm saying this primarily for the benefit of those who weren't included in the Tuesday tour, but you probably need to know where Hover Woods is because there's a lot of communities up there. Hover Woods is 75 yards from the fire station. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Paper can't hear you, so.
Okay, I'm sorry. So anyways, it's 75 yards from the parking lot at the fire station. Now, Hover Woods is part of a community of services that started many, many, many years ago. I would think it's the largest concentration. The Hover Woods organization in total is probably the largest organization for senior citizens in Longmont, period. So, let me say this. If you want to know something about us, we're old, like everybody else in this community. You got to be 55. Most of us are 70. My neighbor's 97. Now, people buy condos in Hover Woods for two reasons. Because they feel safe and because they're pretty. One reason they feel safe is because it's a gated community, the only one I know of its kind in Longmont. And we got a first-class landscaping committee, which doesn't charge me anything, and they do a bang-up job. So, I got to say this. From a political point of view, we got people in there that are so far left. Wow. We got other people that are so far right. Wow. But when we see something that we think is ill-conceived and wrong-headed, we can agree to be totally against it. And we're totally against you putting this homeless shelter into that fire station. Now, just because we're here, let me also say this. I'm not sure why you would even consider that location, but in that you appear to be doing so, if you want to proceed with that, we'll do everything we can to stop you. Okay, problems. Well, I can only talk about the ones we've had because the ones you're going to give me haven't happened yet. We've got, I can't list them, I don't have time. We've had theft, vandalism, substance abuse, fights, noise, prostitution. That was the biggie last year. And I'd say we get 6 to 10 calls that we have to make to the police department who are they're absolutely fabulous. I can't say enough about Longmont's finest. They're the greatest. But I'll tell you one other thing. It's serious enough that they say, keep your windows closed until we get this straightened out.
All right. I'm
We're not that safe.
I'm going to have to cut you off. That was 3 minutes. But I think we got the message. So
no, you haven't got the message yet, well, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to give you the message if you let me.
All right. Well, I have to cut you off at 3 minutes.
I'm so sorry because I don't understand why the timers are all different.
No,
my wife's timer.
Your wife could come up and finish. She could say something at some point if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah, she'll do that.
Yeah. So stick around.
She's good.
I'll bet she's awesome. But thank you, sir.
Thank you,
all right. Thank you. All right. And okay, we can't clap because there might be somebody here. There might be somebody here who really, really wants that fire station to be a homeless center, and now they might be scared to come up. So you know, officer, can you arrest this man, please? No. All right. Is it Michael Udow? Yes. Udow.
Good evening. I am also concerned about the fire station closing. I live in the Hover Park HOA. I'm one of the younger kids on the block. And I am concerned of the possible closing of the fire station for the following reasons. One, many seniors on fixed income in the 2 HOA apartments, there's assisted living, and soon the Greenway residence homes are on a fixed income. Number two, I'm wondering if the council has contacted David Marshall in Public Safety to receive statistical data on how often the fire station is called out on emergencies to homes and apartments in our HOA area, which consists of 4 different HOAs. I would imagine it's daily, if not multiple times a day. And that proximity is important. I wonder if council has comparison statistics to other stations in Longmont and the amount of emergency calls they receive daily. Would a new fire station be located within a quarter mile, a half mile, a mile to the current location? Retirees are on a fixed, number 5, retirees are on a fixed income. If the station is not located within a specific distance, isn't there a possibility that homeowners' insurance may potentially rise? Number 6, when time comes for homeowners to move into assisted living, and that happens all the time in our HOA, their major investment, which is their home, and the equity accrued is intended to help sustain their long-term care needs. Number 7, I'm wondering if council has data on home values either increasing or decreasing when a homeless shelter is built in a residential neighborhood, which would affect the potential sale of a senior's home and that money to be used for assisted living. I hope this entire process in the discussion of the shelter and the fire station will go through a public process over time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Tracy Post.
I'm shorter. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm Tracy Post. I am also here tonight for the meeting about Fire Station number 2 that was had between Councilors Waters, Peck, Christensen, and Martin with the Way Home organization. I'd like to know personally what makes you feel like you are above transparency, rules of conduct, open meeting laws, and common courtesy. I find it very telling that your non-meeting happened in a district that none of you live in, that you didn't have the common courtesy to invite or even inform the counselor who does live in that district. That's incredibly disappointing. I would like to take this moment to remind you all that Colorado's Sunshine Law states, and I'm going to quote, all meetings of a quorum or where 3 or more members of any local public body, whichever's fewer, at which any public business is discussed, are declared to be public meetings and should be open to the public at all times. There were at least 3 members of this council at that non-meeting tour at all times, and the potential use and or sale of a city facility was discussed with an outside third party. By every letter of that law, that was an open meeting, and you all 4 violated that law. Then you have the nerve to play the private citizen card. I'm sorry, but that bucket doesn't hold any water with me, because the Way Home organization did not contact you for a city tour of a facility for the use for their organization because you're a Longmont citizen. They contacted you and they were there because you are Longmont counselors. You know it and I know it, and when you were called out on it, you lied about it, and that's infuriating. You intentionally kept the public in the dark because you know the people who actually live in that area are gonna contest your agenda. And you kept Councilwoman Finley in the dark even though you know she's the one that lives there. That is beyond disrespectful to her, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. I am very tired of local politicians using the public for their stepping stones. I am very tired of the ask for forgiveness and rather than permission attitude that happens. If you want to have an open and honest conversation about homelessness, you need to involve everybody instead of sneaking around and planting homeless shelters in other people's neighborhoods. And that's why you've just proven to me that you don't deserve public trust. And if you want to play by the rules where you throw down the private citizen card, maybe you should still be private citizens because your constituents deserve better representation. And honestly, Mr. Mayor, I had hoped for a little bit better leadership because you had the opportunity to hold them accountable for their behavior and you gave them a pass. And that is incredibly disappointing from this city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are always tough. All right, Robert Dornan.
I'm Robert Dornan, 1432 Elmhurst Lane. I'm president of Hover Park HOA. I am here to speak to you about the repurposing of the fire station. Surprise. Okay? I'm in favor of compassionate homeless assistance to homeless people. However, a homeless facility in a residential neighborhood adjacent to a senior community with no other suitable facilities nearby makes absolutely no sense to me. So I hope that gets some real good consideration. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir. Kimberly Taylor?
Hello, my name is Kimberly Taylor and I live at 808 Cheyenne Avenue. I'm here tonight because I am an active member of the Longmont Performing Arts Initiative, as well as the Vice President of the Board of Directors for Centennial State Ballet. But most proudly, I am the mother of a son who is a company member of Centennial State Ballet's pre-professional ballet program. And I'm here to thank the council for considering the approval of the MOU in order for us to move forward with the feasibility study to bring a performing arts and conference center to the city of Longmont. In my opinion, the access to and the support of the performing arts in a community has a direct correlation to academic achievement. And if deemed feasible, I believe a performing arts and conference center in Longmont will not only attract many patrons and businesses to host meetings in Longmont, but will also provide many valuable learning experiences for the students in our community as we prepare them for career readiness. I want to thank you again for considering supporting the MOU and considering the possibility of becoming a partial funder of the feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Strider Benston.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley and City Council. Is it on? Yeah. I think I'll be brief. So much is going on, it's hard to deal with it. The most significant thing, let us be mindful of President Franklin Roosevelt, who saved capitalism and saved democracy by the New Deal. Workers' rights, FHA, CCC, GI Bill, created a middle class, all of that. Taxes were 96% at one point, and then Eisenhower thought they were cool at 91%, and now they're trying to exterminate taxes on rich people entirely. I am totally with the Green New Deal people, although I apologize, I haven't read the whole document yet. But be aware of one thing. When democracy was reawakening, there was a group called the Mount Pelerin Society in 1947 that conspired to overthrow democracy everywhere, and they centered on the United States, and they began taking over in 1980 with the Reagan Revolution, which started in Philadelphia, Mississippi, to let the world and the country know it's all based on racism, because that's the most racist known town in the country. So we do need to rebuild our mental structure, our knowledge of history, our society. And let me just point out, new book, Joseph Ellis, his 16th book, I think, called American Dialogue, where it brings the founders with people dialoguing about what they said. And let me give you just one quote. I didn't know that President John Adams was a Marxist. It was, Karl Marx was about 10 years old at the time he wrote this to Thomas Jefferson. Basically, he said, as long as property exists, it will accumulate in individuals and families. I repeat, so long as the idea and existence of property is admitted and established in society, accumulations will be made, and the snowball will grow as it rolls. We're dealing with that in the extreme right now. It's a wake-up call that someone as insane as our current president is pushing it over the hill. We have a climate to deal with. Let's save the planet.
Thank you, Mr. Benston. All right. So before we go on, I know that this is a little irregular, but I just want to kind of address something, and I'm not going to open it up for council. But I think that we'll save time if I make a brief statement. So many of you are here about the fire station, and I appreciate, and I think we all appreciate you coming. But I do think that I just want to explain what I saw as the mayor, right? And so, first of all, that fire station is set to be in service for what, 2.5, 3 years? So it could be even longer, right? So as soon as I heard about the tour, I immediately contacted my fellow council members and asked them what happened. All of them. I also contacted the city managers and asked them what happened. And what happened was there was a private group that asked for a tour. People who ask for tours of fire stations, Cub Scouts, private citizens, senior groups, we give tours constantly. Oftentimes I am asked to attend as mayor. Usually they're small children. But that's a pretty common practice if someone wants a tour. In this particular case, when the tour was requested, Harold, without thinking, passed it off to another staff member. I think that the best way to explain it is I had a meeting later on that day with Councilmember Waters. There's an old abandoned Safeway over in Ward 1, which is near my house. It's the ward that I used to represent. It's the ward that Councilmember Waters represents. I was asked by Teresa McPhail to attend. I had no idea that Dr. Waters was going to be there. We both walked in. We're like, hey, how's it going? I didn't know you were coming. There were two of us. Not planned, nothing. We sat down and we just listened to what they had to say. They were concerned about that shopping center, and then we left. Had 3 people shown up, it would have been an open meeting still, nothing against the law. If 4 would have shown up, it's common practice for this council as well as the city manager to say, hey, look, somebody's got to leave. We can't do this. In this particular case, I don't know whether you trust me or not, but after speaking with my council members, I am 100% sure that they were just showing up in response to an invitation. And so there was no pre-planned meeting. Knowing not only their character, but the relationships they have with one another, the odds of them conspiring to collude, I would say, are virtually impossible. And so now whether or not you agree that Longmont should have a homeless shelter or not, I can tell you that as the mayor who sets the agenda along with the city council, there are no plans to put the firehouse station on a future agenda to turn it into a homeless shelter. And so I only share that because it is important to me that the public trust this council. I trust this council. I was one of the ones who wasn't invited. I don't share political views with all my councils. I think I've split politically from everybody, at least at one occasion, some more than others. But I have no doubt that this is an honorable council, and I just thought that would be appropriate to say. And if it comes up that we are going to consider using public funds or even permitting or changing zoning on the issue of a homeless shelter in this city, it will be a public dialogue and debate. And so each individual council member, we had a public meeting on Friday. A few people attend those, but on Friday mornings, it's recorded. You can go to the Longmont Observer website and look and hear that discussion. It was an autopsy of what happened, how did this occur. Feel free to listen to each of the council members' comments and thoughts and feelings about what happened, and you can be the judge. But you have my word and our word that we will take appropriate action to make sure that such mistakes or misunderstandings don't occur in the future, because it's a black eye for council. It looks bad. We realize that. So please forgive us and we'll do better. Okay? All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Don Quintana, could you please read that?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, thank you.
Item 8A is ordinance, Ordinance 2019-15, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H18A, the premises, to Chad Brinkoff, tenant. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for February 26, 2019. 8B is a resolution 2019-15, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Board of Governors of the Colorado State University System, acting by and through Colorado State University, for the use and benefit of the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, for the preparation of a natural resources inventory at Button Rock Preserve. 8C is resolution 2019-16, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement for electric standby distribution service between the city of Longmont and the town of Lyons. 8D is resolution 2019-17, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives for the use of the Longmont Firing Range and Training Center. 8E is resolution 2019-18, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the city of Colorado Springs for an Internet Crimes Against Children grant. 8F, resolution 2019-19, a resolution of the Longmont City Council to join Colorado Communities for Climate Action. 8G, resolution 2019-20, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city, Visit Longmont, Longmont Downtown Development Authority, Longmont Area Chamber of Commerce, Longmont Economic Development Partnership, and Longmont Performing Arts Initiative to undertake a feasibility study for a performing arts facility and conference and meeting facility. 8H, resolution 2019-21, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the open space acquisition of Double Six Ranch LLC. 8I, approve council contingency up to $15,000 for 4th of July fireworks bridge funding. 8J, approve an economic development services agreement with Longmont Area Visitors Association for provision of tourism promotion.
All right, do we have a motion? Councilmember Peck?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I would like to pull 8H.
Okay. Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I move the consent agenda accepting 8H.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Martin and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Let's go ahead and vote. Oh, sorry.
We need to remove AJ.
Oh, we're not voting on that?
No, we need to
All
remove
right,
it.
so let's go ahead and amend the motion to pass the consent agenda minus H and J.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a
So moved.
second? Second. All right. The amended motion passing the consent agenda minus H and J. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. First of all, ordinance 2019-12, a bill for an ordinance approving the First Amendment to lease agreement with Longmont Wind Air Company. Are there any questions from council? All right, seeing none, we'd like to open up the public hearing on ordinance 2019-12. Mr. Ross, want to say anything? No, he didn't hear. So, all right. I'm kidding. It's a different subject. All right. So anyone else want to speak on this ordinance? All right. Seeing none, let's close the public. Can we have a motion, please? Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I move passage of O 2019-12.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Let's move on to, we're going to skip B for a second. Let's move on to 9C. Ordinance 2019-14, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H-14G to Rick Basilier. I don't know how you say it, but Basilier. If I had that last name and that spelling, that's how I'd say it. It sounds cool. All right, Councilman Martin.
I move passage of 9C, ordinance 2019-14.
All right, great.
Second.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Oh, sorry. Did we? All right, let's open that up to public hearing first. Would anyone like to say anything on 2019-14? All right, now let's vote. Let's close the public hearing. Now let's vote. Councilmember Peck? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, item 9D, Modern West annexation. Number 1, Resolution 2019-14, a resolution finding a parcel of land known as the Modern West annexation eligible for annexation. Are there any questions from council? All right, seeing none, let's open this up for public hearing. Oh, we still need to have a public hearing on it, don't we, Eugene?
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. So the last meeting, we had the hearing on the statutory compliance and closed that hearing.
Let's reopen it then.
Don't necessarily have to reopen it. We would have a hearing on the ordinance, the
Right.
annexation ordinance.
Right, well, let's just go, I think I said we'd have it. So let's
Okay.
reopen the public hearing at this time, if anyone else would like to say anything else. All right, let's close the public hearing. Seeing no further discussion from council, let's go ahead and vote on Resolution 2019-14. Well, let's have a motion then. All right, do I have a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Ordinance 2019-09, a bill for an ordinance conditionally approving the Modern West annexation and zoning the property MUE, which is mixed use employment. Are there any questions or debate from council? Okay, seeing none, now let's go ahead and reopen the public hearing on this matter. All right, seeing none, let's close the public hearing. Councilmember Finley.
I would move passage of ordinance 2019-09.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. Councilmember Martin, Dr. Waters. Oh, hey, it worked. It worked. That passes unanimously. All right. H was removed, correct? I think this is a point of clarification, correct? So instead, let's go ahead and just vote on the one item that was removed from the, not vote, let's discuss the one item that was removed from the consent agenda. Jay's pulled. We're going to go back to that one. No, yeah. We're going to go back to that one. I imagine Metro Districts is going to take a little bit longer than clarification on this issue. All right, so Councilmember Peck.
Thank you. Actually, I pulled this for, you're correct, Mayor Bagley, for clarification. And I'm wondering if our city manager would clarify this as to the sale of this open space property. Are we going to sell it, or is this a separate issue?
So if you, and I'm going to ask David Bell to come up and help me with this since this was his item, but if you look at the council comm, and I know this is for the broader public, we are purchasing the open space for $2,934,950,000 today. Today is not contemplating a sale of the property. It is something that we're looking, that is the potential for council to consider at a future date and a future action. David can talk to you all about this and why we want to do it. What we didn't want to have happen is bring something to you in the future and council ask, why weren't we made aware of this when we purchased it? The intent of this is to maintain it as open space as we're required to by the legislation. It really deals with continuing the farming at that location. David, do you have anything to add?
Mayor Bagley, council members, David Bell, Natural Resources Manager. I think Harold did a good job of covering that. I think as we go to look at especially agricultural open space properties, our goal is always to try to extend the city's dollars by doing a conservation easement. Sometimes families aren't willing to do that. We can find a partner sometimes. Boulder County has partners in the past. Sometimes we go ahead and do the acquisition and do simultaneous closings. Other times we have to find a partner after the fact. Our goal tonight really is to purchase this property. We think it's a great property. We think it fits into our portfolio. If we in the future have the ability to find a partner like to buy the fee simple, allow us to keep the conservation easement, keep those items that we feel important for the public good, the agricultural heritage, the view sheds, the water. If we can do that, we would bring it back to you for your approval. But tonight, it really is just the acquisition of the property, and as Harold mentioned, making sure you're aware that we may bring it back if you see it again. That was the intention that you were made aware up front that this has ability to have a conservation easement placed on it by working with a willing buyer.
But that's not tonight.
That is not tonight.
This is the 2.9 million
This is
purchase.
the
How many acres
acquisition.
is it?
71.
All right, so $41,450 per acre, more or less. Councilmember Finley?
My question is, why didn't we just buy the development rights?
Again, that would be Councilmember Finley. Again, I think as my personal preference as the person managing that budget, if we could buy those development rights, we'd like to do that. Sometimes families aren't willing to do that. They want to just get out from under it. This is a family that was a family out of Boulder. The patriarch of the family was getting on in age, 90-some years old, and they just wanted to cash out of this. And that's why, again, we're willing to do that, but also be willing to entertain ideas to recoup some of the city's money by going back and doing a conservation easement where we keep those development rights. And the surface, on this property specifically, that surface use that we maintain as a city where there's no future surface use for oil and gas.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move 8H.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, now let's go back to probably the main event of the evening, which is 9B, Ordinance 2009. What? Yeah, but that's because we're not voting on it tonight. So 9B, Ordinance 2019-13, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 4.10 of the Longmont Municipal Code on special districts, policies, and procedures. Are there any questions or comments from council? Mayor Pro Tem. The floor is yours.
Okay, I would like to know if this is the proper time to have a discussion or whether you want to wait till after it's been moved.
Well, I don't think staff doesn't have a presentation, right?
No.
So I think it's all the same right now.
All right.
So let's go ahead.
So we can have a discussion
Yeah.
now. All
Yep.
right. Just a minute. Okay, we have just come out of a meeting. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. There's a legal concept called que bono, meaning who benefits, where is the good, otherwise known as follow the money. This came before us, and I think it's very deceptively stated. In the communication we got, it states that this is being brought before us because it would assist in the construction of affordable housing. And it would provide funding for initiatives that assist Longmont in becoming a center of science, technology, engineering, education, arts, and entrepreneurism. Where is the proof of this? Where is the data? Where are any statistics, any studies? Quite the contrary, if you actually look at studies and research, and I'll tell you where I get my research from. I get it from DOLA, Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Justia, which is a legal research site, Colorado Sun, which is a very well done, nonpartisan paper of very good journalism. The Hill, another newspaper, Colorado COPRIG, which is Colorado Public Interest Research Group. And if you go to COPRIG, you will see that Colorado has the 4th largest number of special residential districts in the country. We have at least 1,600, and it is now the 40% of our local government. 40% of our local government is now these special, fully functioning government entities that have complete autonomy under government statute. They're not controlled by us, they're controlled by the state, but they're actually not controlled by anyone. If this was providing affordable housing for any of the states that have this, an overwhelming number of special districts, such as Illinois, which is number 1, California, which is number 2, Texas, which is number 3, and Colorado, which is number 4, then we would have had plenty of affordable housing by now. These have been around for a very long time, or since the mid-70s. And all we've seen is the growth of less and less affordable housing. So it does not provide affordable housing in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it undermines the affordable housing ordinance that we have spent 1 full year squabbling about, delaying because of demands for different things, and delaying and delaying and delaying. And now we are talking about letting special districts come in. We received a memo with questions that we had asked our legal department. So on that memo, the question was, well, I'd just like to clarify with the city attorney. According to this memo, the city council is prohibited from requiring or enforcing affordable housing requirement or deed restriction in a special district because this is a full government entity. Is that correct?
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. So special districts are creatures of statute. They can only perform purposes authorized by the General Assembly. Affordable housing is not one of those purposes, and so a metro district should not be engaged in affordable housing services.
Right. Thank you. These entities also have full government immunity from liability. Isn't that correct?
Yes, they are named as a governmental entity in the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act.
Yes. And the developer has no liability for the district either. And the other thing is that if we try to impose any sort of restrictions on them, such as mill levy caps and other requirements for other requirements, that will diminish their ability to function as an entity that is able to raise bonding money, because the mill levy capping the mill levy will prevent that. So there are so many problems that have to do with this. This will not create more affordable housing. And as for the idea that they will somehow provide funding for initiatives that assist Longmont in becoming a center of science, technology, engineering, education, arts, and entrepreneurism, where is the evidence for that? Where is the data? Where are the reports? Where is any kind of proof for that? Further on down it says, background and issue analysis. This is supposed to assist local government in facilitating development and growth of its community by providing a mechanism of financing, construction, owning, operating, and maintaining public improvements. This is already done by various mechanisms like bonding, all sorts of things. This is not, does not serve any purpose that way. It's simply another way of cost shifting the burden from the developer, builder, onto the homeowners. I repeat what is down here under background and issue analysis. A district serves as a governmental entity unto itself, being a political subdivision of the state. Where is the oversight on these? It is solely in DOLA, Department of Legal Affairs. DOLA is merely a repository, and they provide counseling and help with paperwork. They do not have any ability to enforce, nor do they have any authority to enforce anything. If people are late getting their reports in, there is no penalty, there is no oversight, there is no transparency. The The district is self-governing, thereby limiting control by the municipality. That's what it says here. Why are we doing this? This is a political subdivision of the state. We will create tons of these completely separate subdivisions of a political entity in our town, which totally impacts the ability of this government, of the city council and the government of this city that represents the city, the citizens of the city. And we will be creating instead something that is set up by a private corporation and governed by a private corporation, because there are no people voting on it, there are no residents there. Until the residents do come, there is no possibility that anyone other than the developer or builder will have anything to do with this. We are going to walk into something that has already been tried, and we have 4 pages of municipal code that we are willing to cross out based on some sort of emotional overreaction to I don't know what, but stories that some people have been persuaded by certain entities with a lot of money is a good idea. It is not a good idea for all the reasons that are already listed in here that I read last week. It's cost shifting onto the homeowners, who will be, as it says in the ordinance as it is, more reluctant to vote on anything that benefits the city as a whole, because they are already going to be so burdened with higher taxes than the rest of us pay, that why would they vote for themselves to have any more taxes? So we will have a more and more difficult time getting anything bonded as a city, because they will be so overburdened with taxes that they're already paying. Last week we spent several hours discussing the things that this city council should not do anymore, because it takes up too much time, of our time, of staff's time, of everybody's time. We received not only this, which took hours and hours and hours of a previous council and a task force to put together. And we also received a copy of the work that Fort Collins has put into approving a special district, which was 200 pages long. I do not think we have the people and the time to put into every single person, every single entity who wants to come here and ask for a special district. We came out of a meeting just recently talking about a woman who'd done property management. She was talking about all the horrors created by a developer who took a flyer and left a whole bunch of condos, condominium owners, or actually renters, and there was extreme amount of construction defect. They had basically worthless buildings that they had to pay for themselves to fix up just to be habitable, much less being able to sell them. There was no accountability for them, and I don't know if they were a special district, but it just, you know, the idea that we are going to just solve miraculously all of our problems with special districts is, I think, fiscally and morally irresponsible. So, in short, I would like you to remember that this undermines the affordable housing ordinance that we have spent a year working on, and some of us have spent considerably longer. Number 2, this undermines our city government and control of raising money through bonding. And number 3, remember who voted for this. And remember this next time there's an election.
All right, Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I see a conflict in our council communication with the statement that our city attorney just made. If you will look at page 297 or 301, depending upon if you have a digital or a hard copy, one of the requirements that the city council or the staff put in for metro districts is that the developer agrees to CRS 32-1-203, which is our inclusionary zoning ordinance that we just passed. That totally conflicts with state statute, which says that metro districts should not and cannot be dictate affordable housing. So that's conflict that we say this is what we're going to, that if someone comes and asks for a special district and we say if you're not going to do inclusionary housing, then you can't have, we're not going to do it. They can't do inclusionary housing. That is not a mandate from state statute. It would have to be something that they decide to do on their own. So we can't base whether we give this is just my opinion, a special district on whether they are not going to do affordable housing according to state statute. Secondly, the way that the developer is going to get this funding, future funding from the residents, is through taxation, and they are going to bond that. They have the authority to bond that themselves, to become their own bonding authority. So if it's one person or an LLC that is granted a special district, they can either bond that money on the market, going with the rate on the market, or they can become their own bonding authority, which means that they get to set the interest rate. So I have a real problem with that. And the second thing, there are a lot of loopholes I see, but the one that I really see, and I asked planning and zoning about it, and they said that was an interesting question. And what it is there's an agreement between planning and zoning, the city, and a developer that if you build an amenity such as a road that connects two arterials, it would be a connector. Then if there's another development that comes in and uses that connector, they will pay you a portion of what that road cost. So if there's 2 or 3 developers that come in and they're going to use that road that the original developer put in, they will pay that original developer for that road. My problem is if a metro district was formed to build that road, and I don't have the answer to this, but it's why I'm not going to support this, because I think this is a horrible loophole. Is that developer getting money from the tax that they've levied on the future residents and money from the adjacent developers that are coming in using that road? And I'm only using a road. There could be other amenities that they would levy taxes on the residents for. And that is a huge loophole that I don't think anybody's really solved. And to me, it's double dipping by the developer. And I just can't go with that. The third and final reason why I will not support this ordinance is that, you know, we are elected officials, and the residents elect us based upon what they've learned about us. And with that, we vow to uphold the Constitution and the city charter. We are given the power to levy taxes on our residents. We do that through a bond. It's very transparent. We ask you if you want that to happen, and you get to vote on it. I am not willing to say to a developer, I'm going to give up representing my residents and give you the power to levy taxes on our residents. Why would I do that? So that is a real problem for my integrity. And so I will not be supporting this vote, this ordinance.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I'd just like to clear up a couple of points because I think that they have been stated incorrectly. First, when a special district is created, the statutes of the city over which the special district is laid are still all in effect. And the special district has one purpose, like you know, funding a firehouse or some horizontal infrastructure of some sort. It doesn't mean that the statutes of the city don't apply, and please interrupt and correct me if I'm wrong, but if a municipal district is created for any of the single purposes listed, the city's affordable housing ordinance is also still in effect. That means that while the service plan for a special district cannot modify the intent of the ordinance is still in effect. So any development that goes on in that district has to either pay fees in lieu or create affordable units. It doesn't, the way this has been stated here seems to say that the affordable housing ordinance is erased, and that's not true at all. It's still completely in effect. So I don't know whether that was an intentional misstatement or a belief, but it's not true. The affordable housing is still in effect, and we can't modify affordable housing, the affordable housing statute for the special district that's created, but it doesn't mean that the affordable housing ordinance is gone inside the special district. That's just not true. I have the law, and I can't imagine what reading of the legal memo that we saw you could make that would draw your conclusion from it. The statutes are still in place. The zoning is still in place. You know, all of the city laws and ordinances are still in place, and this special district only affects the ability to bond for one purpose in a service plan that has to be approved by the city before the special district is created. Second thing is the assertion that we'll create tons of them. We don't know what future councils will do, but we'll create you know, we have to approve a service plan every time one of these districts is created. They can't come into existence spontaneously. So if we want to create 2 this year, then that's all we will create. I don't know whether there'll be tons or not, but you know, we don't have to create any just because we open up the possibility that they are done. A special district is nothing but a financial instrument that can be used to get something done that is financially difficult to do in another way. And I don't see that as a problem as long as there is reasonable oversight in place. The city does have controls. The city puts a service plan in place when it allows the creation of the district. And the reporting and actions of the special district are subject to the sunshine laws. They're subject to annual financial filings. And if the city chooses to exercise oversight, it has a number of mechanisms, including the courts, to ensure that the actions of the special district are proper. And when the purpose of the special district is fulfilled, which after all involves the population of the district with voters, then those voters will have the power to vote on the continued financing of their special districts, because any modifications to the bonding, the election of the board, all of that stuff have to be on an odd year ballot. And so it's not that there's no oversight. There is oversight. There's appropriate oversight. And the appropriate oversight, the first appropriate oversight is the creation of the service plan for the special district. Finally, there's a certain amount of parallel between something else that I've been working on this week and this. In the state legislature, a bill was introduced at the beginning of the year and was heard in committee and passed committee yesterday that created a rather complex financial instrument to help generation authorities, municipal, public, and otherwise, that have coal plants, finance the premature closing of their coal plants. I think everyone has heard by now that we are in a climate emergency, that the consequences of burning fossil fuels are going to come home to roost. I mean, the latest pronouncements from the scientific community have said that 2030 may be too late. And so Senator Chris Hansel introduced a bill to allow the city to, or allow utilities to create financial instruments, bonding instruments, with the assistance of the state and with restrictions by the state to help employees that are distressed by the closing of the coal burning generation facilities to bear the cost. So what this is doing is moving the cost from the utility who built a coal plant doing its job in 1980 or something, when it was not considered a stupid decision to build a coal plant or an evil one. And it's spreading the risk to the society because you don't really want your generation authorities to go out of business. You just want them to convert to renewable energy. It fits a societal purpose. And it's very much the same as a special district. It's a neutral financial instrument that can be allowed by the city for a societal good. The reason that affordable housing was mentioned in the council instructions on this law were because we think that affordable housing right now is in Longmont is an emergency and fills a societal good. And if we can re-enable a financial instrument that happens to make it easier to build a community, regardless of whether it's an affordable housing community or any other kind of a community that we find desirable, I don't see any problem with that. It's just a law. It's not a good law or a bad law. It's a neutral law over which we have control. And we don't have to create a bunch of special districts. We can create one or none or 6. But I don't think we should be blaming the law, and I don't think we should be demonizing an industry, whether it's the coal industry in Colorado or the real estate development industry in Longmont.
We have a surprise appearance by Councilmember Aaron Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. First of all, I would say that I would disagree with Councilmember Martin in that service agreements and IGAs are adequate functions of oversight by the municipality, especially when we're talking about a quasi-governmental jurisdiction, not a quasi-municipal jurisdiction. As stated by statute, these are governmental entities, such as we have intergovernmental agreements with the city of Boulder or Boulder County. We have very little oversight about outside of this IGA about anything that they do. And it was also stated in the legal memo that service agreements, if too burdened by what municipal desires are therefore no longer really viable as metro districts. And so to me, that doesn't seem as an adequate oversight or adequate municipal jurisdiction, especially when we're putting these things within our municipality. I am not convinced that these are adequate when it comes to the enforcement of said service agreements or IJs, especially when it talks about 45-day limits based on infractions. And so, therefore, to me, as was stated in the first conversation we had about this a couple weeks ago, unless there is a change in statute, I inherently cannot accept special quasi-governmental districts within our municipality without increased oversight. And so that's where I stand on this at this time until state statute changes.
Councilmember Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Bagley. So I have some questions. Eugene, I know you're loath to answer legal questions in public, so hopefully I'll frame these in a way that I'm not putting you on the spot. But the first thing I'll do is make an observation that I suspect we're not going to change any minds up here tonight. We're all giving speeches. We're not changing anybody's mind at the end of the day. I think it's pretty, unless we're going to change the mayor's mind. I don't know. But I don't think we're changing other minds. But I would like to get as much factual information on the table as possible. And I guess maybe one other observation before I do that is, I think the comment that it's a law, it's a tool. Some are, tools used well do good things. Tools used badly do bad things. Bad people with bad tools, even with good tools sometimes, do the wrong things. So I am curious, Eugene, if you can answer this question. Which of our ordinances, by the way, how many special districts do we currently have in Longmont?
Mayor and council, I believe we have 2, Harvest Junction and Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So how much do we feel good or bad about those tools? Have those tools served the city well?
I would ask somebody else. That's not illegal.
Oh, Eugene, I'm not asking. That's not illegal. I'm looking at the city manager.
Eugene.
I'm sorry, Eugene. That was a question for the city manager. Has the city benefited from those special districts?
When we looked at, I wasn't here when Harvest Junction was put together, but I know that was a critical component of making that project move forward, and it served that purpose. In terms of Village at the Peaks, that is generating the revenue that does go to pay off the debt.
Looking at the financials, we are already, as I recall, 91% of the cost of debt is being covered by mill levy. The rest is being covered by sales tax. So we generated $1.4 or $3 million in the 2019 budget, not found revenue, but and not a surprise, according to plan, but revenue that's only there because of what we would be losing money, as I recall. I wasn't on the council, if the conversion of what was the mall hadn't occurred into Village of Twin Peaks and it's a complex financing scheme. But it would be hard for me to think of that as being immoral or irresponsible or emotional to look at that and think the city isn't well served by those districts. That's a statement. But I wanted the acknowledgement that that's not bad stuff happening right now with the districts that previous councils have already created. So to wave a flag that somehow we're doing something seriously evil by simply continuing what's already occurring. I realize these are different. These are residential versus commercial districts. But now I go to my next question. Which of the ordinances in Longmont are special districts immune from or they're not subject to? Do they have to pay sales tax? Do they have to comply with our land codes? Any ordinances that a special district doesn't have to comply? I'm back to Councilmember Martin's assertion that they're subject to the laws, the ordinances we've created. Is that true or not true?
It would be true in most cases. I'm thinking if a governmental entity is subject, if they're constructing and have to pay use tax, I don't know the answer. Maybe Jim would know.
Hopefully Jim will know. Jim, I know, came in, had gone home sick or didn't. Thank you for coming in, Jim.
Mayor Bagley, members of council, I believe that they do pay the use tax if it's due, unless it's exempt. But they're not they fall underneath the sales.
Yeah, they're
tax
not tax
code.
exempt.
Right.
If it was created as a tax exempt district,
it would still be under
they're not.
the city's code because it exempts.
So we're collecting
certain
taxes.
districts, so.
Are they not subject to the IZ ordinance? Oh, they are. They don't have to build affordable housing. We haven't mandated anybody build, whether they're inside or outside a district, affordable housing. They do have to make a payment in lieu if they don't.
Mayor and council, so my assumption is metro districts are not building housing units. They are building the statutorily authorized services, infrastructure, fire protection, mosquitoes, things like that. The inclusionary housing ordinance applies to those entities building housing units.
In a metro district.
Right.
Anywhere in our city limits that are subject to our ordinances.
Right, so not quite your question, but I think it might help clarify. The developer would be obligated to comply and provide affordable housing, payment in lieu, meet the criteria of the inclusionary housing ordinance. The metro district, I mean, I think it's apples and giraffes. The metro district's not building housing units.
So the assertion, that's a great point. The assertion that somehow, because a house is built or a development is built in a metro district, that they get a pass on our IZ ordinance is simply not true.
The inclusionary housing ordinance just isn't applicable because they're not building housing units. The developer
But homes
is
built,
subject.
builders building homes in a metro district would be subject to the inclusionary housing ordinance.
Yes. They're
Thank you.
overlapping geographic areas.
Yeah, yeah.
With different obligations.
I'm going to switch. You're off the hook for a moment, I think. Here. I'm going to, and Harold, these probably aren't quite fair questions for you, but I don't know who else to ask them to. There's a project that you and I have discussed, though we've all been aware of it, on the west side, south of Oscar Blues, that triangle piece of property. I think that developer's interested in a metro district. Now, whether we do this, whether we pass this ordinance or not, there's a certain amount of cost associated with the development of that piece of property. That developer has developed in other communities and has offered product in the marketplace, $270,000 to $400,000 townhomes, right?
Slightly over 400, but yes.
But in that range.
Yes.
So it falls into the category of workforce housing, and at the 270 to 315 on up to 400 would be product that we've already identified is in the mid-tier for workforce housing.
Yes.
So that developer, that builder, would be delivering product that we said as a council we need. We created an ordinance to incent it, and that developer can deliver it on one condition, that he finances the cost of that, the cost of the lateral or the horizontal infrastructure over time. Now he can pay for it up front by baking into the cost of his homes, right? So a home that might be $270 would be $370, or whatever that cost is, he's going to allocate that over all the units on some proportional basis in his development. So he's going to either charge that, he's going to get it up front, or he's going to get it through a metro district over time. But the fact is, somebody's going to pay for that cost of that development. And it's going to be the homeowners or whoever buys the property or the product, right? So the idea that somehow developers are making more money because of a metro district, is that, I mean, help me think through how that would happen.
So I don't know who signed up in public invite to be heard, but I know there's probably some
Harold, what do you think?
So here's what I can say is the conversations that I've had with different folks on different projects, their pro formas look differently in terms of how they do it. But what I have heard in this, and this is what's relayed to me, is that in terms of the cost of the horizontal infrastructure, that's going to fall in one of two categories. It's going to fall into the overall cost of the project, which then is pushed into the price of the
sale
housing,
price.
The sale price of the housing units. Or when I've heard folks talk about metro districts and how that looks, what they've talked about in that process is that they bond it and they put it out over time. It's just a different financial mechanism that they're using.
Who's going to pay for that cost?
In the metro district?
Yeah.
That would be the people that live within those defined
Who buy the
boundaries
homes.
of the district.
No matter how you finance it, they're going to buy the homes. Now, if I was buying one of those homes, and that builder had a chance to amortize that cost over 30 years or 20 years, whatever it would be, and I wanted to upgrade my home in his development or her development, I'd probably want to do the same thing. If I was going to upgrade my cabinets and my flooring and my window coverings and all the kind of appliances, what homeowners do, my wife and I bought 2 new homes only in our lives. But when we did it, we wanted to amortize that over the cost of the life of the mortgage. In those days, you could actually get some tax relief, right, with your mortgage rates, which you don't get so much anymore. But you might get some of that from a mill levy, a property tax, as opposed to a mortgage interest payment. But either way, I'm not likely going to write that check up front. I'm going to amortize it over the 20 or 30 years of my mortgage, which is exactly what the builder's doing to keep the cost of the home down initially. Is that true? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you're my foil on this.
Yeah. So you're saying by taking the amount of the infrastructure and spreading it out over time, that they're not having to fully burden the cost
I
of
can
the
bake
house
it in
at
up
the
front, or I can spread it over time. But from day one, there's no question where those costs are going to get covered. They're going to get covered by the people buying the product in that development. It's not a gift. The developer's not gifting the cost of that development to anybody, right? So it seems to me that in terms of the interest of creating options that are absolutely consistent with what we've done with our affordable housing package, not just the ordinance, but the entire package. Creating options to spread that over time as opposed to loading up front is in the interest of what we want to see, in my view, in the marketplace. Now, I don't know how emotional what I'm about to say is. I don't feel real emotional. I care about this issue. But I heard earlier that this would be an emotional decision. But for me, we have homeowners who are members of HOAs. Oh, some of them are sitting right behind you. We have homeowners who live in neighborhoods with HOAs, and they pay, in some cases, substantial dues. Is that true? Uh-huh. I see a lot of heads nodding. Now, I've had phone calls from presidents of HOAs who have wondered with me about the conversion of their HOAs to metro districts. In this case, these aren't developers. They're not trying to gouge anybody. They're trying to save themselves some money and create the capacity to bond big projects that their neighborhoods need. So the question really in those conversations has been, how do we do it, number one? And number two, how many units do we have to have, and what do our dues payments have to be to make it work financially, that we could convert from an HOA to a metro district and get a tax benefit from what were HOA dues payments and now are property tax payments, so I get some tax relief. And we can bond to do bigger projects that the neighborhood needs. So choosing not to act on this ordinance tonight would deny those homeowners the opportunity to even consider that. Is that correct? Yeah, that's a legal question, probably. You're on the hook again, Eugene.
Under your hypothetical, yes.
So my last question, and I know maybe this goes back to Jim again. Should we expect to see, if we approve this, should we expect to see in a financial plan a proposal from, if in this, let's say it's a new development and it's a developer, should we expect to see their intent or their plan for how they would bond their project? And we get to decide whether they bond it privately or publicly, yes or no? We simply could reject, if some of a proposal comes, they want to bond it privately, we could say, not in this city. You're going to bond that through a public financial institution.
Mayor Bagley, members of council, we certainly would be able to review the plan and decide whether we approve it or not. They can tell us which way they want to bond it, one way or another. What we won't be able to do is see anything in that service plan that tells us anything about what the prices of the homes will be, because that's not what the service plan is about.
I get that. That's not the
So
point.
there's no way of
It's,
knowing.
is it privately or publicly bonded?
Well, he could probably do it either way, whatever they recommend, and then you can decide
Well, we get to
whether you
decide.
approve the plan or not.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody says, I want to bond it privately, we get a chance to say, no. Come back with a different
Correct.
plan. So, I want to say to my fellow council members, I'm going to vote for this motion. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be proud of it. I'm going to do it with confidence that I'm making the right decision, because we are in control, and it's absolutely consistent with other decisions that we've made in the past. I'm doing it unemotionally, I think, and I'm doing it morally and responsibly. Thank you.
So sometimes there's Boy Scouts out here in the audience, right? And I'll take a moment, and these bubbles come over my head, and I'll have a mayor moment, and I'll say, hey, kids, you're watching Democracy in Action. So since the neighborhood's here, you're hearing, the only people that have spoken so far are the 4 colluders of this council, right? And the question and Aaron, yes, sorry, Aaron. I posed to you the question, these 4 individuals, not including Councilmember Rodriguez, is there any doubt in your mind that they didn't collude? So, anyway, let's go on to Councilmember Finley.
Yeah, one of the non-colluders.
No, my point is that you guys,
I
nobody
know.
colluded to go to the fire station.
I,
My point is that
I would agree with everything that Councilmember Waters said. I do want to read the actual ordinance so that those out there can see what it says. City Council will use certain criteria in determining whether to accept a draft service plan to review for any given district. The proposed development shall conform to Envision Longmont Comprehensive Plan and applicable city development code provisions. And they go down a little further, the City Council will determine what change constitutes a material modification of the service plan. Any material modification in the service plan shall then be submitted to the city and shall first be subject to approval by the City Council in accordance with the provisions of the special district. We do have control. The control is we approve the service plan, and we approve any modification of that service plan. The homeowners don't have to move there. It's not something imposed on them. They choose to live there, and they know when they choose to live there that they will have an additional tax, and that property tax is tax deductible, which your homeowner's fees, as you know, are not. So it's actually a little added benefit there. I will certainly be voting for this and will do so without any hesitation.
I have some thoughts, but let's keep going. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, let's see. It has been, we have had this conflated now with closing down coal plants as if it is exactly the same thing or very, very close. It is nothing like the same thing. And it's been stated that it's a neutral financial instrument. It isn't. It's another legal entity. It's true that we approve the service plan. Are we going to disprove it? No, we hardly ever do. I doubt that will happen. It has been stated that we have 2 special districts here, and yes, we have 2 commercial special districts, and we have no prohibition on that, and I have no problem with the commercial district because they are around. It is in their best interest to stay around, and they are supported by businesses who are also, it's in their best interest to stay around. They're not being supported by people who are trying to find a house that they can live in to be their home. There's a big, big difference. And by the way, Harvest Junction was 18 months late in filing their first year plan, and there were no repercussions. Nobody knew about it for a while, then they found out about it, it didn't matter, nobody cared. you know, the idea that somehow, are we going to hire extra people who are going to oversee these special districts and go into their corporate financials and subpoena records when their headquarters are in Florida or Texas or California? We have no idea. As I said, when Fort Collins did this, the material that they got was 200 pages long. We don't have time to do this. This is there when this is brought before us initially, there is no public input. This is created by the developer or the builder. They are the only people voting on it because there is no one there. It is a proposal. And we have to basically trust that they're going to build what they are going to build and that they will file their reports on time. And our only option, unlike what was just stated, is to find them in non-compliance with the service plan. The only repercussion we have, the only choice we have after that is to take them to court. I don't want us to be spending money to take people to court. I don't want us to be spending time doing this. I can't understand why people have not read the problem with, all the 4 pages of municipal code that we would be striking out. What was the reason for this? Was this some whimsical thing that City Council did and City staff did and the legal department did in 2009? I don't think so. This is pretty serious. And while we may be paying off the loan for the Twin Peaks, the Village at the Peaks, I'm sorry, this building, the public safety building, the economic development building, and the library are not really owned by us. They are in a COP, and we have to take care of them, and they are not ours anymore until we do pay them off in a decade or 2 from now. So even though we're paying back the loan, well, that's a different issue, really. The special districts, there is no prohibition on library special districts. There is no prohibition on commercial special districts. That's not what this is about. This is about residential special districts that we will have to wade through both a fully governmental entity as well as the developer in order to uphold the affordable housing ordinance. It will just make everything much more difficult. I don't see a reason. I don't see any reason or any kind of writing, any kind of study, any kind of statistics, anything that proves that this will give us more affordable housing, better housing, or in any way improve the city. It will simply balkanize the city into lots of different special entities that we will have to form intergovernmental agreements with for every single one.
The chair would remind the council that there's no motion yet. If someone wants to make one. Councilmember Waters.
I'm going to move approval of the, what's the right way to say this? I'm going to move approval of the revision to Chapter 410 of the municipal code as presented.
All right, so this chair is restating the motion, which there's a motion for ordinance 2019-13, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 4.1 of the Longmont Municipal Code on special districts, policies, and procedures.
Yes.
All right. And that has been seconded.
Do I still have the floor?
You do.
All right, so it's on the floor.
No, we're not voting yet. Okay, we're just, I still get to talk. I got like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
awesome.
he hasn't even ripped into it yet. So there have been a couple of references to the materials we got from city staff, and I appreciate the fact that we got all the materials from 1995, 2008, 2009. I still think there are lessons to cull from that, right? So, and reading through it, trying to cull, what the lessons are. I would say, number one, if we were voting on a fire district tonight, I'd probably be voting no, based on this experience, but we're not. But I've read my materials. I suppose all the other council members did as well, to understand what happened in 1995, and then how the council intervened in 2008 and 2009. And I appreciate people who served in 1995, people who served in 2008 and 9. But if we were going to, or if I, as a council member, was going to sit in this seat and constrain my options based on what previous councils have done, we wouldn't have passed an inclusionary zoning ordinance. And by the way, I don't recall a lot of data. We looked at a lot of numbers, but we did not look at data that would predict the number of units we would have in the marketplace after having passed that ordinance. We created a set of incentives as part of a package, and in my mind at the time, part of the package was creating metro districts as a way to help reduce costs on the front end so we can get more workforce housing in the marketplace. That's exactly, in my mind, why this is in front of us tonight. So it's a continuation of what we were doing then without predictive equations about how many units we're going to get, but we were monitoring, we agreed to monitor the implementation of that ordinance and that whole package, and this is part of that. So if we pass this tonight, and obviously I hope we do, we get a chance to monitor. If we need to make changes as we go along, we get to do that. But I am not willing to be held hostage by decisions made in 1995, in 2008, and 2009. I want to learn those lessons, and I want to get smart as we go along. But I'm not stuck in 1995 because of a decision that was made then, or an intervention that had to be made in 2008.
Ironically, wasn't 1995 the Back to the Future year? Anyway, Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. A couple of points. Councils can make mistakes. There are some people who think we might be making one tonight. In fact, I guarantee that no matter how this vote goes, some people are going to think that we made a mistake tonight. It's obvious from looking at the history of that fire protection district that somebody made a mistake somewhere along the line. But I don't think it was a universal mistake. I think it was a specific mistake. I wasn't even living in Longmont when that originally happened. But I can imagine the fraught trade-off between having the housing that the Clover Basin area would provide, but being in a city that could not provide a fire district for that subdivision at the time. Now, there were design problems with the fire district, with the scope of the fire district, with the initial mill levy being very large. There were all kinds of issues. We could have put a sunset in, where there would be a date in the future where the city would reabsorb the fire district, and we could have done that, and we didn't do that. I am just at this point speculating on possible solutions, but the fact is that because there was a bad design and a mistake doesn't mean that the whole mechanism for facilitating financing of something that's too big for the budget right now should be thrown out. It's a baby bathwater thing. I have hit my thumb with a hammer before in my life. I did not subsequently go through my house and throw away all the hammers in all the toolboxes. And believe me, because of my family history, that's a lot of hammers and a lot of toolboxes. And I feel like, to belabor that analogy, that what some of the council members are proposing would be like, because one of my fellow council members who is very handy and likes to make modifications at home might have hit their thumb, that I would appoint myself to go over to that person's house and throw out all the hammers. There are just certain things that are a bridge too far in terms of protecting free people and I really don't want to sound like a libertarian, but protecting free people with agency from making mistakes of their own. Yes.
So, excuse me, there was a point of order. Councilmember Peck?
We're getting very close to breaking Robert's Rules of Order about stating your own opinion and not demonizing other council members for their opinions. Please just state your own opinion and how you're going to vote, and we'll all respect that.
I don't think.
Well, we were getting very close, so
Right,
I
well,
just
the
wanted
chair
to
will
call it.
overrule the objection.
Okay.
But it's probably a good reminder just to everybody remember to be nice. But
Sure. I deliberately didn't want to name any individual, but I think we're over the line here in terms of protecting other people. The reason that I brought up the coal plant financial instrument that's being proposed at the state level is because a lot of people object to that law debated in the legislature against that law was because, and they were completely explicit about this, they wanted to hurt the coal generators. They wanted to punish them for their contribution to climate change. And that's just not a reason to do something. And wanting to somehow force the financial burden of something that is a net good for the community onto one particular group is not a reason to do something in this community either. And I cannot escape from the feeling that is behind some of these objections. This is a financing mechanism. It confers benefits to all parties. And, you know, if we get a 200-page service proposal, we don't even have to read it. We can just say no. Come back with something that's tractable. So I'm going to vote for this. I also am going to vote for it proudly and in good faith. And I don't see the work burden as being necessarily greater than the work burden for any other special agreement about a development that we have in this city, and we handle them all the time. So I'm voting for it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Okay, it has been suggested that we are somehow, let's see, demonizing the development community or something, or seeking to punish them. What we are trying to do is let human beings who want to buy a home be able to buy a home. Once you buy a home and actually afford to continue to live there and not be continually burdened with more and more and more fees that come in whimsically, because they will be able, people will be a special district or a metro district for residential homes. We're not talking, once again, we're not talking about commercial, metro, or special districts. We're only talking about residential, special, or metro districts. People already have perhaps, well, certainly they have a mortgage. Some people are fortunate enough to be able to buy a home cash only. My parents did that. That was good. But very few people can afford to do that, so they have to pay their mortgage. That's their fee. In order to have a mortgage, they also have to pay insurance. They also have to pay their property taxes. Then on top of that, they will have to pay an HOA fee in most places. You can say that, well, you don't have to move into an HOA. But that's nearly impossible anymore, to find a place that does not have an HOA. So good luck with that. Now we're talking about either replacing an HOA with a special or a metro district, But that's still another burden, and that burden can increase at any time depending upon the special or metro district, because once again, they are a fully legal entity. So we're not talking about anything but the cost shifting of the entire burden onto the people who will be living in that district, who haven't gotten to vote on it. And you can say that they don't have to move into a special district, but once again, it'll be very hard not to if we allow them. That's why this was, you know, prohibited, because it was going to create more and more problems. People who refuse to learn from the past are doomed to repeat the past. So I will not be supporting this ever.
Councilmember Martin.
May I call the question?
You may, but there's nobody else in the queue.
Then I call the question.
All right. So, all right. It hasn't been seconded, but let's go ahead and we're going to vote. I don't get real passionate. Oh, no, I know we're not going to vote yet. That's what I said. We're not going to vote yet. But so I don't get very passionate about issues, and the only thing that I really ever got passionate about was the oil and gas discussion. This is one where I'm kind of like, you know, it's could be, it's a tool, you know. But a couple of thoughts come to mind. One is I am confused why we beat up on developers a lot. You know, we assume that they make money. You go over to Ward 1 and look at Shadowgrass, which is a development that went under, and they continue to struggle to try to just get the thing built. With my law firm, many developers have come in and filed bankruptcy. And so for some reason, we think developers are rich, lawyers are rich, doctors are rich. Some of the richest people in this town haul trash. You know, one of the richest residents of this county owns a trash company. Wendell Pickett, I see in the back, you know, that rich guy back there, Wendell Pickett. I have no idea what your pocketbook is, but he owned a welding company, you know. And so you never know. You know, I can point to any industry and show losers and winners. I think that I don't think Clover Basin was a mistake. I think Clover Basin, the fire district, worked just like it was intended. If I wanted to build, for example, and somebody said, well, you can't build, you got to pay your own way, and there's no fire station. If I wanted to build bad enough, I'd say, I'll pay for that fire station, which they did. And then after a couple years, as people started to move in, it was like, wait a second, we're paying for your all fire station. That's not fair. And they did away with it. So, it could have been prepared a little different. You could have expanded the special district. It could have been done more fairly. But at the end of the day, just because it was implemented and then done away with doesn't necessarily mean that there was a mistake. Granted, I'm not familiar with all the details of what happened and whatnot back then, but I don't necessarily think it was a mistake. I think that, and I also think that there's a difference between financing and control mechanisms. So usually what happens when you're I've bought one new home, and when we bought it, we were one of the first people to buy it because the lot had this huge pile of trash on it. And so it was quite clear to me when we bought that house at 2327 Flagstaff Drive that we were a part of an HOA, and guess who controlled that HOA until we built out the majority of that subdivision? The developer. I got no say in it, other than you can either buy here and live here, or you can go live somewhere else. And so at this point, I actually would like the opportunity, if I were going to move into an area, I'd like the opportunity to know whether or not, hey, I get to choose if I'm going to get taxed. Because if I don't like the taxes in New York, I don't live there. If I don't want the taxes in a special metro district, I don't live there. So I think it's inherently just a fair process. It's just, and if I don't pay my HOA dues, my HOA has to come after me, sue me, lien my home, take me to court, get a judgment, collect. A special district is just a way to circumvent all that and basically put it on your property tax bill. And so, to me, the real issue as to whether or not this is going to work or not isn't tonight. It's going to be when we have a developer or a builder come forward and say, hey, I'd like to do a metro district, and this is what I'd like to do. And then as a council, we get to say, okay, now that they're allowed, what do you want to do and why? So they might bring forward a really good plan. They might bring a really bad plan. And if it's a really bad plan, I'm not voting for it, right? And so these are just some of the kind of thoughts that go through my head. But at the end of the day, the biggest thought that comes through my head is that someone's got to pay for this. I mean, we as a council passed an inclusionary zoning ordinance, and nothing's free. Someone out there has to work, put up capital, do the labor, and then we take that money from them and we give it to people who can't afford houses. That's what we did with the inclusionary zoning ordinance, which I voted for, by the way. But somehow, we have got to pay for it. And it's either going to be the developer or the builder, or it's going to be the people moving in to purchase those homes. And as I was pointing out with someone earlier, we've already made it unfair. If Sean Lewis wants to move right now, and he wants to move into a home that's pre-built, he can move in no problem. If Sandy Cedar, same person, same salary, actually I don't know if it's the same salary, better be, right? We'll talk about that later. But Sandy Cedar, same position, says, I want to also move, but instead, you know, Sean's going to close in 6 months, so am I, but I'm going to build my home in the interim. She's going to probably wind up paying more for her home because we're forcing her to pay an affordable housing mandate, tax, bonus, penalty, whatever you want to say. So we're already doing that. The question becomes, who's going to pay for it? This is just one more tool in my mind that will allow us the opportunity to figure out one more way to get money. And when the developer, the first one comes back, and then the second or the third or the fourth or however many it is, the question becomes, what you're doing, is this what we want as a city to do? And me, for one, I will have no problem. I'm going to probably vote for this. I'll have no problem making the motion to do away with it if it turns out that people have crappy ideas and I think they're taking advantage of us. But I don't think that tonight is the hill that we're basically all dying on. I think it's more along the lines of planning what that hill might look like. So anyway, the question has been called, although there wasn't a second, but there's nobody in the queue. So let's don't vote. Let's go ahead and open this issue, Ordinance 2019-13, to public hearing. Is there anyone present? Yeah, come on up. You have a list. Do I got a list? All right. Ma'am, you come up. What is your name? Well, come on up. We'll start with you because we'll all get heard. Kevin Mulshine can wait.
My name's Lynette McLean, and I'm from 969 Reynolds Farm Lane. I'm just going to read a little thing that came out in the Colorado Springs newspaper in September of 2016. I'm just going to read some parts. It was titled, Our Special District Conundrum. It says, powerful people do indeed scheme and conspire. Special districts, they're a boon and a plague. They're the least expensive and in many ways the most beneficial way to build infrastructure in new neighborhoods. Say you have some acreage on the city's northeast periphery. The market looks great. You've lined up builders. You're ready to go. I got to put my glasses on. But you need money to build infrastructure. You create a special improvement district, persuade the council to approve it, and then issue bonds. The bonds are secured by mill levy on all real property in the district. In practice, that means a substantial additional property tax for every homeowner, one that may burden property in the district for 20 years or more. This is taxation without representation. Oftentimes, there have been reports that that gets paid off, and the money still goes into the developer's pockets, even though that's all the expense has been paid. You can ask why developers don't pay for infrastructure up front. Why should they? Potential home buyers are price sensitive, not property tax sensitive. Long-term bonds carry lower interest rates, except for that special districts can change their interest rates, than short and medium-term commercial loans, and repayment is spread over a much longer period. Developers put less capital at risk and buyers pay less. That sounds great. It sounds like a classic win-win, but it creates long-term problems. It makes suburban development cheap, easy, practical, but it puts an infill of all kinds at a disadvantage. These special property districts they benefit developers and the corporations, and that's not who your constituents are. Your constituents are the homeowners, the potential homeowners who don't really know what they're getting into. You have control of approving it, but then, like you're saying, you won't be able to. You don't have any oversight. You won't see what's happening. You won't see when the interest rates are raised or when they don't make their commitments. It breeds corruption and secrecy. And you lose control because you give your control away to these special districts. There's no protection from the to the homeowners, and there's no oversight. So I'm not you're talking about whether or not you can approve them or disapprove them, but after you do approve them, you lose control. So keep your control. I want to pay when I buy my house. I want to pay for it up front with my mortgage. I don't want a special district. So anyway. The homeowners bear the burden, and they haven't given their consent. So this is really taxation without representation. Please don't pass this. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Lynette, what was your last name? McLean. Lynette McLean, can we ask you did you state your address for the record?
I did say it, 969 Reynolds Farm Lane.
All right, cool, thank you. All right, Kevin Mulshine?
Kevin Mulshine, 8583 Strawberry Lane, Mayor, City Council. We just want to make some real quick points, if you will. We want to talk about facts tonight. This is Metro Studies list of the top 10 selling communities in the entire Denver area. They have several things in common. Number one, they're all master plan communities. Number two, they all offer housing at all different prices, including workforce housing. And number three, they're all special districts, every one of them, every one of those Metro districts. Why is that important? Because there's another thing in common. All those thousands of homeowners receive the same disclosure of the exact fees they're going to be paying and they're going to be liable for. But those home buyers still said, I want that package of amenities and I want to move into that community. So I don't think we really need to protect those residents from themselves if people are providing the right package. The next slide real quick, Jam. I fully expect that when we come back with a service plan, I'm going to be asked two very important points from this council, two very big hurdles. Number one, how does this district impact the affordable or attainable housing? Attainable housing is a very important component. It's greater velocity, therefore the bonds are supported much quicker. Number two, what is the home buyer paying for? We want to build amenitized, beautiful communities, walking paths, greenways that are enjoyed by families and families that are in the working class prices. So I want to go to the third slide. This is on the micro level. Trying to put a community together, our goals have been meet or exceed the city's affordable housing objectives. We clearly have been doing that. We've been working with veterans, working with Habitat for Humanity to provide them space in our development. Number two, we're trying to develop a master plan community, bike lanes, greenways that are going to be enjoyed by everybody, and community amenities. Number three, we want to provide options that are for the workforce housing. What are our hurdles? Land and infrastructure costs associated with meeting the affordable housing guidelines. Number two, the cost of we have to build over 1 mile of collector roads in our next development. We have to construct all the amenities. The Metro District is just one important piece in the recipe so that we can provide an end unit at an attainable price and still be able to provide a package that families want to live in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan Hinson? You're a wise man. Jake Spencer? You're not so wise, but thank you. All right, and then Doug Elenowitz.
I guess I am walking in the hornet's nest. My name is Doug Elenowitz. I live at 9963 East 29th Avenue in Denver. I live in a residential neighborhood with a metropolitan district. I built a home there in 2005, and it's been wildly successful for me and my family. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this evening. I wanted to use this time to communicate my positive experiences in working with residential metropolitan districts, and really my support for what council is considering tonight, which is enabling you to have the right to consider the tool, to consider district and service plans within the city. I've been involved in community development for nearly 20 years now, and I've had the benefit of working in 22 different states with a variety of public finance tools, including metropolitan districts. And when used thoughtfully, they can really support a positive development outcome. Most recently, I have been involved in a project in Lakewood, Colorado, and upon the review and approval by the Lakewood City Council, we created a metropolitan district for a residential-only community in the urban infill environment, so not big suburban areas. And what that allowed us to do was to create an attainably priced, for-sale community that met the housing needs of the missing middle. But for the passage of that district, we would not have been able to provide for housing in the 80 to 120% AMI without any requirement to do so. I had prepared certain comments tonight based off of what I've heard in the discussion. I did want to hit on a couple of points maybe off of my script. One is I want to make it clear to my understanding that the passage of the district in no way does the city's approval of the service plan impair the city's exclusive jurisdiction over land use, zoning, permitting, or the provision of municipal services. It's a very narrow box. In that service plan, when it comes forward to council, not only does it say, what is this going to be used for, but it contains a plan of finance that has to be reviewed and should be rigorously reviewed to make sure that it stands up on its own and that it's a well-constructed cake. And that is what the city's role is initially in improving it. So there's been some discussion about this wide range of uses that could happen here and changing interest rates and all that. That has not been my experience. I want to say that in absence of the metropolitan district that we've used, and I've used it in several locations, the public improvement construction costs would have been financed by higher cost equity and private loans.
All right, I'm going to have to cut you off, though. Your time is up, but thank you very much for your thoughts, sir. Appreciate it. All right, anyone else want to speak at tonight's Strider Benson? Come on up.
Thank you. Strider Benston, 951 17th Avenue. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This has really been interesting, and I have not been subject to such a discussion before, which has a whole lot of coin flips in it, and I may not know enough to be addressing the types of things you're looking at, but I want to speak more generally. I remember living in Chicago back in the 70s when they started creating industrial districts and such as that, and labor laws did not apply, certain types of human rights did not apply, what kind of schools, all of that kind of stuff. And it served overall to lower the standard of living of everybody and make it easier for corporations to buy special rights to where human rights were excluded. I don't know how much of that applies here, but I lean towards the negatory, but I heard a lot of points that were well taken on the supportive side. But I want the basic thing, the master plan, the community. What are the basic rights that we as a community, as a city, really mandate, and which rights are for sale to whoever has the money to come up front with them or have a special exclusion? Well, one of the points of exclusion is to have an exclusionary zone, and we have our own kind of community, and to heck with the general community of which we are part. So I lean toward one single thing. Mayor Pro Tem Christensen said the point is the balkanization of the city. And keep that in mind while you're looking at this. If this is approved as a general standard, then it may still be in abeyance, and what will come up in the future, and which rights are for sale, and which rights are dealt with in this particular thing, and which rights are comprehensive. I don't know if we are capable of looking into that on that level tonight, but keep it in mind, because we don't know what might happen, 15, 20 years in the future. Oil development, will they make a special thing and override the city ordinance or whatever on that? Let's not be blind while we look at this. It may make sense right now. 8 years from now, it may not.
Thank you, Mr. Benston. Anyone else? All right. See no one? Let's go ahead and vote. We'll close the public hearing, though. Now we'll vote. That narrowly passes, 4 for and 3 against. It's Councilmember Finley, Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Martin, and Councilmember Waters for, Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Peck, and Mayor Pro Tem Christensen against. Thank you. And proudly, and just like I told the folks who are here in the audience, that I really appreciate all my council members and their integrity, because I think that everybody here has loads and loads of it. All right, let's go ahead, and it's 9 o'clock, feels like 11. So let's go ahead and take a short break and then come back and conclude our meeting. It shouldn't take too much longer. All right, let's go ahead and get started. If you can hear my voice, think about coming back in. But we won't start without you. If you need to do some things, let's take 2 more minutes. John, if you would leave, we could get some real good stuff done. Oh, yeah, Scott, too. Yeah, Scott's like, yeah. All right, now that we're all back, now that we're all back, let's go ahead and continue. Let's move on to general business, number 11A, salary review for the city manager. City Council had an executive session where we discussed the past performance of our city manager over the last year. I believe that it was pretty much unanimous as you look at the data collected, et cetera. We're pleased with Harold, your performance. We think that you're doing a great job. We ask that you not stop. Don't look for other work. Please. So nobody's in the queue, so I'll go ahead. I actually move that we give actually, Dr. Waters? All right, I actually move that we give Harold a raise of $15,130, which would put him at market. That's been seconded by Councilmember Peck. $15,130. No, 15. 15. And I know that will be this is contingent upon not giving it away like you've done in the past. It's contingent upon also just don't give it away. Just you're doing a good job. Put it away in your kid's savings account. You're worth market. You're worth average because that's how you should view this. You are 100% mediocre and you should be paid as such. Dr. Waters, yes, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah. So I know you're only kind of joking. You're joking about the average part.
Yeah.
I do want to say, as a new council member, this is the first time I've gone through this. Number one, I really do appreciate, Harold, what I've learned about you and your approach to this role. It's gonna, having been in a role where my salary was on the front page of the paper for everybody to read, including my family. I know that's difficult, but you are worthy, and if anybody's paying attention, we said our philosophy was going to be to compensate people at market, and our high performers to get above market. So you're a high performer. We'd like to get you, I'm certain, above market, beyond what we did, but that's maybe more of a stretch than we're willing to do. But you've earned every penny and more. So anybody who understands the complexity of running not just an organization, but multiple businesses has got to appreciate the challenge of a city manager. So well done.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I did happen to upon the newspaper article and some of the subsequent comments on it. I really would challenge anybody that thinks that they can do Harold's job to try, because it's an amazingly difficult and complex job outside of, as Dr. Waters said, running the organization, but also dealing with us, the council. So I am wholeheartedly voting for this.
I move that I should get a raise then. No, just kidding. Councilmember, I'm just kidding. Councilmember Martin?
I'd like to second what Councilmember Waters and Rodriguez said. I also want to point out that Harold did say, don't give me such a big raise, it will embarrass my kids, because I thought it should have been a better raise. Yeah, I particularly just love to bring wild-haired ideas into the city manager's office. And I would just want to say I have never, ever found him unprepared for what I brought forward. And maybe I'm overrating my wild-haired ideas capability, but I think that's pretty impressive. And well, you know what that means to me is that Longmont is going to continue to be a forward-thinking city that is not going to miss out on stuff it needs to get on board with. So, thank you.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I agree with everything that's been said. But I also have to say that Harold has this amazing quality when we're sitting up here to frame what we're saying in a way that we can understand it. And I think that is a real gift. And that how you keep your solid demeanor is beyond me. I'm just so impressed, and I thank you for everything that you have done for me and that you listen. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Finley.
Harold, you earned every penny of that raise this year and more. And I had a call from a constituent. They left me a message talking about how, you know, your salary was in the paper, and they were one of my retired constituents, and they just thought that amount of salary was just outrageous. And I didn't call him back, but I should have, to tell him all the things that you do and how you are really worth every penny.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I'll join the little love fest here. But yes, I'm going to vote for this, and I think you're worth every penny of it, too. I think you have, as Joan said, you have a really wonderfully diplomatic quality of being able to take, from listening to us, and also all of the city departments, and finding a balance and a common ground, and clarifying what each person has said, even though you may not agree with it, so that we can find some kind of middle ground and we can move forward. And that's exactly what a city manager should do, along with all the rest of the stuff you have to do to keep the town running. So this is, everybody I think who lives in this town appreciates how well run it is. It's not like it's a perfect town, but it's really, really well run. I've lived in a lot of different places, and thank you.
Average, 15,130. Let's vote. Councilmember Peck, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh.
And that passes unanimously. Thanks for your work.
Mayor, I just
yes.
I wanted to say thanks for your comments, and thank you all for working with us over the last year. We've, as an organization, tackled some really weighty and heavy topics that were difficult for all of us to deal with. I definitely appreciate your feedback and how we're going to continue working as an organization to improve on what we do and to meet the expectations of the council as we move forward. But I would be remiss in saying that everyone in this organization does an amazing job, and I appreciate what you're saying. But really, it's a testament to everyone that's a member of our team and the work that they do to help make our community a really great place. And so I will definitely pass that on, and I just wanted to say thank you. I am exceptionally uncomfortable in these environments, and so thank you, I appreciate it, and I've enjoyed working with all of you and developing individual relationships with all of you. You know, those are things that'll last forever.
All right, thanks, Harold. All right, let's move on to general business B, board and commission appointments. Shall we start with the Airport Advisory Board? You want to just lead us, do whatever you want.
Okay. So you have ballots in front of you for the, this is a cleanup appointment from end of year. These are the vacancies that were remaining after interview recruitment. The first one is the Airport Advisory Board. You each have ballot packets. There are 2 applicants for the unexpired regular term ending December 31st, 2020. Bagley, so the 2 candidates are Steve Bliss and Russell Robeson. Bagley voted for Robeson. Rodriguez voted for Robeson. Sorry. Waters voted for Robeson. Martin for Bliss. Finley for Robeson. And Peck for Bliss. That's 4 for Robeson, 2 for Bliss, and we have 1 council member abstaining. Yes? Okay. So Russell Robeson will fill that position with a vote of 4. The next one is Art and Public Places Commission. There's 1 unexpired regular member term for June 30th, 2019. 4 candidates there. Thank you, Sandy. Waters voted for Green. Bagley for this Penman. Peck for Green. Finley for Green. Martin for Anderson. Christensen for Green. Rodriguez for Green. So Randall Green with 5 votes will fill that seat expiring June 30th, 2019. Callahan House Board had no applicants, so we will hold on to that vacancy. Housing and Human Services Advisory Board has 1 unexpired term ending December 31st. You have a ballot for that. You have 3 candidates. One of those was not able to make it tonight. That was Chody Singh. Thank you, Sean. All right, so Martin Holt, Rodriguez Holt, Waters Norris, Finley Holt, Peck Holt, Christensen Norris, Bagley Norris. So Sarah Holt will fill that vacancy with 4 votes. I'll skip the Housing Authority and come back to that one, Mayor, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Master Board of Appeals, there are 3 vacancies and 1 applicant. You can do it by ballot or vote.
I move that we appoint Tom Martinez to 1 unexpired regular term ending 12/31/19.
All in favor?
Well, he's an alternate member. So.
Put him in the regular seat.
Yeah, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then the last one is Transportation Advisory Board, 1 unexpired regular term ending June 30th. You have 3 candidates. One of those, again, was not able to make it this evening. Thank you. Martin Livingston. Bagley Livingston. Waters Livingston. Rodriguez Livingston, Christensen Livingston, Peck DeBee or DeBye, and Finley Livingston. So Livingston will fill that seat easily with 6 votes.
And then the last one, Longmont Housing Authority, mayor appoints by statute, but I take into consideration my council. Overwhelmingly, the majority suggested Deborah Nakano.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and appoint Deborah Nakano.
Very good. Thank
Okay,
you. Thank
thanks.
you very much.
Waters, Rodriguez, me, Finley. All right, let's go on to legislative bills recommended for city council position. There's one, Senate Bill 19-076, Colorado Department of Transportation Consulting Engineer Contracts. And do we have a motion? Councilmember Peck?
I move that we oppose SB 19-076.
Second. All right, it's been seconded by Councilmember Martin. All right, let's go ahead and vote. That passes unanimously. That is what I call efficiency right there, people. Woo! All right, let's go on to final call, public invited to be heard. I see, well, actually, we see some members of the public over here. You know, come on, anybody? Sergio? No? All right. Anybody? Officer. We have yet to ever see a man-at-arms come up and just like bust out like, I have something to say. Not today. Today's not the day. All right, let's go ahead and move on to mayor and council comments. All right, seeing none, let's go on. City manager, do you have any remarks?
No comments, Mayor Council.
All right, city attorney, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor.
All right, we're adjourned.